His name is Roland Chamberlain, and he's 32 years old. I lost my parents when I was 12, and I've been living with him ever since. He introduces me to everyone as his niece, and he's been increasingly distancing himself from me, which makes me feel very frustrated. I've had enough of being his niece, now I just want to be his girlfriend. I'm in my room, standing in front of the mirror, feeling angry. The girl in the mirror doesn't have the curves of the women he brings home, nor their quick wit that he seems to fancy. Just as I'm wallowing in self-pity, I receive a WhatsApp message from my roommate, Meredith. "Hazel, I'm going out tonight. If my mom calls and asks, tell her I'm with you." I reply with a simple, "Okay." Meredith is a master of romance. Only in her second year at uni, she's already had several boyfriends. I envy how she can wrap men around her little finger. A thought crosses my mind. I send her another message, "Meredith, how do you make a guy fall for you?" "Fall for you, break it down and you'll know the answer." Her cryptic reply leaves me puzzled. I ponder over it for a while before finally understanding her meaning. I dig out the black lace set I bought ages ago from the back of my wardrobe and hastily change into it. I keep checking myself in the mirror, hardly daring to look at my reflection. All my life, I've been taught that girls should be modest and virtuous, to be a proper lady. But thinking of all the women he's brought home these past few months, I steel myself and wrap a towel around me before heading out. It's dark outside, and I don't turn on the lights as I pad barefoot towards the kitchen. I dawdle in the kitchen, waiting for him to arrive. Due to his heavy smoking, his throat isn't in the best shape, and he always comes down for a glass of water in the middle of the night. Sure enough, I hear the sound of his slippers on the stairs. As the footsteps draw closer, my heart starts pounding. I tell myself not to back down, and with a deep breath, I loosen my towel a bit. When he comes in, I can pretend to be startled, and the towel will naturally slip off. It's a perfect plan. I anticipate seeing him lose his composure. But when he enters, I let out a surprised gasp, and before my towel can fall, a suit jacket flies over, covering me from head to toe. "Why are you in the dark, trying to scare someone?" His tone is flat, his emotions unreadable. I only see him open the fridge, grab some water, take a few gulps, and then turn to leave. Throughout the whole process, I stand frozen in place, feeling anxious. Finally, I pull off his suit jacket along with my towel. "Roland, I'm not a child anymore. I'm 20 now." I muster up the greatest courage of my life, wanting to break through this relationship. "I'm a woman too, can't you see that?" I add, closing my eyes. But all around me is silence. I open my eyes to find the kitchen empty, with only my somewhat tragic silhouette in the moonlight. He left? So, did I just confess to thin air? A moment later, I receive another WhatsApp message. "I'm going out of town. The housekeeper will take you back to uni tomorrow." My heart sinks as I stare at the screen. I saw Roland again after 2 weeks, at his parents' house. I wanted to confront him in person about why he was avoiding me and not messaging me. But he brought a woman home, holding her hand. During dinner, she served him food, and he didn't refuse. I couldn't eat anything, gripping my fork and knife, mad with jealousy. I excused myself to the loo and messaged Meredith, "If a man doesn't call you for 2 weeks, and only sends 1 or 2 WhatsApp messages, what does that mean? He's not interested in you." I could imagine Meredith's certainty as she said this. "Which man is it? How haven't you caught him yet?" I stared blankly at my phone screen, feeling a bit hurt. Indeed, he just wasn't interested in me. What does it mean when a man brings a woman to his parents' house for dinner? I clung to my last shred of hope and reluctance. Then the next second, my hope was shattered again. It means he's committed to this woman and wants to spend his life with her. "Did you go to the guy's house for dinner?" "Congratulations." She sent another string of messages after that, but I didn't want to read them. I just felt my heart bleeding. I didn't continue eating but hid in Roland's room instead. Roland didn't seem to notice anything unusual and went straight to the bathroom with his clothes. I gritted my teeth, took off my clothes, and stood in front of him with a do-or-die determination. He was lying in the bathtub, eyes closed as if asleep. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes, looking surprised to see me for a moment, then frowned. At that moment, I was very afraid he would be disappointed in me, afraid he would get angry and never see me again. I bit my lip, getting more upset as I thought about it. I finally asked him directly, "Are you going to marry that woman downstairs?" He was stunned for a moment, then suddenly put on a serious expression. "That's not something a child should be concerned about." "Why her?" I clenched my fists, palms sweating. "Why not her?" "Because." I desperately weighed whether it was worth risking it all, and finally lost my rationality. "Because I like you, I want to be with you, Roland." We were at a standstill for a few seconds. He sighed helplessly. "Hazel, don't be silly." "I'm not being silly, I'm serious." "Do you know what you're saying?" He stared into my eyes. "I'm your uncle." "You're not," I argued. "We're not even blood related." "Why do you get to take advantage of me by making me call you uncle?" He seemed to be caught off guard by my words and was speechless for a moment. He just waved his hand. "Get out first, this is very inappropriate." No, I didn't want to back down anymore. I wanted an answer. Then my brain went blank, and without thinking, I plunged into the bathtub. Compared to my nervousness, Roland was excessively calm. The calmer he was, the more nervous I became. "Aren't you getting up?" His voice floated above my head, his tone a bit hoarse and somewhat helpless. I reached out with both hands, trying to push myself up, but didn't know where to exert force. In the end, I gave up, my face crestfallen. I can't get up." He stared at me for a moment, then suddenly laughed. The next second, he reached for a towel and wrapped me up in a few quick moves, lifting me out of the bathtub. Then he got up himself, put on a bathrobe, and turned his back to me. After tidying himself up, he came over and handed me a towel and a hairdryer, expressionlessly reminding me, "Dry your hair. I'll have the housekeeper bring up some clothes for you later." With that, he was about to leave. Roland Chamberlain, I couldn't help but call out to him, afraid he would never speak to me again. He paused. "I'm going to pretend I never heard what happened today or what was said." "Don't be so reckless again." With that, he left the bathroom without hesitation, leaving me alone, tears streaming down my face. In the end, Roland Chamberlain still drove me back to school. He clearly saw my swollen eyes from crying, yet he didn't offer a single word of comfort, which made me very angry. "Roland, do you really not want to talk to me that much?" "Hazel, you're grown up now. There are some things you should understand without me having to say them." He rubbed his temples, obviously finding the situation difficult. "I don't understand. Why can't I like you? Just because my parents asked you to raise me, does that mean I can only be your niece?" He didn't say anything, just silently stared at me. "These 8 years, haven't you ever liked me even a little bit?" The more he stayed silent, the more I wanted to shout. He still didn't answer me, just took out a cigarette, tilted his head to light it, rolled down the car window, and looked outside. No. As soon as I opened my mouth, tears fell uncontrollably again. Those 2 words of his were like a sharp knife, tearing my heart apart. "You're lying." He suddenly turned his head to stare at me, his eyes filled with complex emotions. Taking a deep breath, he finally said, "Hazel, you're only 20 years old. You still have your best years ahead of you. You'll have your friends, your studies, and you'll have your boyfriend in the future. You have your life, and I will have mine. I will get married, start my own family, and have my own children. You will gradually stop needing me. Do you understand?" He finished speaking and just stared at me, his gaze unfathomable. Hearing him say he would have his own family and his own children, my mind went completely blank. "Stop the car," I suddenly lost all patience. The driver in front heard and turned his head to look at Roland. "Stop the car, I want to get out." I'd had enough of this oppressive atmosphere and just wanted to escape. "Hazel, don't be silly," he softened his voice to speak to me. "Everything's always your way, what am I to you?" I frantically tried to open the car door. "Stop the car," he abruptly told the driver to stop. I resolutely got out of the car and slammed the door shut. He didn't get out. But wherever I walked, the car slowly followed. Later, it gradually started to rain lightly. At some point, he had opened an umbrella and was standing behind me, not saying anything, just following me like that. Roland, on one hand you tell me to stay away from you and not to have any illusions about you, but on the other hand you do things like this that make me misunderstand. Don't you think that's cruel? I turned around and bumped right into his chest. He reflexively reached out to protect my head. He froze for a few seconds, then finally took my hand and put the umbrella in it. Send me a WhatsApp message when you get to your dorm. With that, he turned and walked away into the rain without looking back. Back in my dorm, I immediately blocked him on WhatsApp and deleted his contact information. Later, everyone in the dorm knew I had broken up with someone. But they had no idea who my ex was. My roommates were chattering away, discussing how to cheer me up. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Hazel, I'm going to a party tomorrow with my boyfriend. Want to come? Meredith asked. My first instinct was to refuse, but then I thought, maybe I should go out and see other men. My world shouldn't revolve around someone who doesn't love me. So the next day, encouraged by Meredith, I went to the party. The party was full of successful people in suits. Meredith, arm in arm with her 30-something boyfriend, moved effortlessly among them. I admired her a bit. I sat quietly on the sofa, suddenly thinking of Roland Chamberlain. Perhaps he needed a girlfriend like Meredith, beautiful, graceful, outgoing, someone who could liven up the atmosphere and make him look good. Someone like me, who gets nervous in crowds and doesn't dare to look around, definitely wouldn't be presentable enough. I picked up a glass of wine and, imitating Meredith, drank it in one go. Before this, I had never drunk alcohol. Uncle Zach never let me, saying girls are easy targets when they drink. I used to always listen to him, but now I didn't want to. So I had a few more glasses. Just as my head started to spin, the crowd suddenly erupted. I looked towards them hazily. And then I saw Roland Chamberlain. He walked in, surrounded by people, like a celebrity. Was I hallucinating? Why was he here? The next second, I sobered up a bit, because I saw a woman holding his left arm. It was Zoe, the one from dinner last time. I watched her stand beside him, greeting everyone, while he remained casual, only smiling occasionally. What a perfect couple they made. Suddenly, I understood why Uncle had finally been won over by her. I felt like a deflated balloon, all my fight gone. As I was about to slink away, a woman's voice rang out. Roland, isn't this your little niece? Zoe Carlyle smiled as she greeted me. Suddenly, all eyes were on me, and I felt my scalp tingle with discomfort. It's Hazel, isn't it? Who did you come with? She pulled Roland Chamberlain towards me. I looked up to see his expression change from surprise to displeasure. My classmate, I answered truthfully. I wanted to leave, I didn't want to stay a second longer. I stood there awkwardly. Little sister, come over here to Big Brother. Don't hang around with them, they're not good people, said a younger-looking man as he approached, enthusiastically grabbing my wrist to pull me to his table. Sean, Roland Chamberlain, who had been silent until now, suddenly called out in warning. What's your problem, Roland? Stop being so uptight all the time, Sean Faulkner gently pushed Roland aside, trying to pull me away. Come on, darling. Don't play with your uncle anymore. He's no fun. Big Brother will look after you. My head was buzzing as he led me away. As we passed Roland, he stared at me and suddenly asked, Have you been drinking? Why are you so annoying? It's none of your business if the little sister has had a drink. You're such a bore, Sean interrupted. I didn't want to deal with him either, I just wanted someone to take me away from here. But as I took a step, another hand grabbed mine. Go home. This is not a place you should be, Roland said. I gritted my teeth, shook off his hand, and turned to Sean beside me. Brother, I'd like to get some fresh air. Sure thing, Sean grinned triumphantly, deliberately catching Roland's eye. Roland must have been furious because before I left, he called out my full name in a low voice, Hazel Ashworth. In the past, when he used my full name, I knew I had gone too far. But now, I suddenly wanted to see him angry. Seeing him upset gave me a perverse sense of satisfaction. I shook off his hand and followed Sean out of the ballroom without looking back. Where to? My voice was soft and slurred. Big brother will take you for some air. Are you brave enough to come with me? He asked with a smile. I forced my eyes open to look at him, deciding he was a playboy. Of course I am. Wherever you go, I'll go. He laughed again. Interesting. The red wine was really kicking in. I felt like my whole body was on fire. Later, my thoughts drifted, and I couldn't remember what he was saying. Brother, can you find me a place to sleep? I suddenly interrupted him. I meant it literally, but I don't know if he misunderstood. My head was so heavy and dizzy, I just wanted to sleep now. Are you sure? He raised an eyebrow, looking at me teasingly. Your uncle will skin me alive. The mention of Roland made my head hurt even more. Are you close with my uncle? I suddenly asked him. He paused for a moment, then looked at me with a smile. Not at all. If you're not close, why do you care what he thinks? I mumbled, slumping into the passenger seat, utterly exhausted. My memory after that is a bit hazy. I think I fell asleep. Later, I was woken up by the sound of a phone ringing. I didn't touch her. I swear I didn't. Bro, big bro, your niece insisted on coming here herself. I really didn't do anything to her. She's just sleeping. Not that kind of sleeping. She's asleep, and I'm not. I mean, she just had too much to drink. Then I managed to open my eyes and saw Sean hanging up the phone and walking towards me. Awake? He leaned over the bed, looking down at me, his voice somewhat gentle yet resigned. You might need to get up now. I have to take you back. Back where? Having just woken up, my mind was still a bit foggy. Where do you think? He asked me back, suddenly laughing. If I don't take you back soon, your uncle is going to bulldoze my company to the ground. I stared at him blankly for a few seconds, feeling a bit sorry, but also finding Roland rather annoying. You don't have to listen to him. He can't be bothered with me right now. Did you delete your uncle's WhatsApp? And block his number? He suddenly asked me with a smile. Yes, I answered honestly. You're something else. Are you sent from heaven to deal with that psycho? He straightened up. Come on, let's get you back. Your uncle said if he doesn't see you in half an hour, he's going to end me. He picked up his keys and led me towards the door. As we stepped outside, I saw a black Bentley parked in front of the house. As we approached, the tinted window slowly rolled down, revealing Roland Chamberlain's dark, penetrating eyes. He stared at me intently, his gaze unfathomable. Well, looks like your ride's here. I guess I don't need to give you a lift after all, Sean quipped. I noticed Roland's face remained impassive, but inside, I felt uneasy. That's just how he was, whether angry or pleased, he always maintained that calm exterior, driving others mad with uncertainty. He liked to control me. In the past, I willingly followed his lead, but now, why should I still listen to him? So, as the driver opened the car door for me, I turned back to Sean with a sweet smile. Sean, could I add you on WhatsApp? Sean froze, glancing at Roland instead of me. Finally, he reluctantly pulled out his phone. Sure, but I might not have much time to reply. I wasn't sure if he was saying that for my benefit or Roland's. After exchanging contacts, I slowly got into the car. Once inside, Roland looked at me, seeming to struggle with what to say. Eventually, he couldn't hold back. Don't go to men's houses in the future. It's not safe. Why can't I? I scoffed. Isn't he your friend? He was momentarily speechless, taking a few seconds before responding. Regardless of who it is, you should be cautious around any man. No man invites a girl to his home with purely innocent intentions. That's ridiculous, uncle. I can't avoid going to men's houses forever, can I? You said yourself that I should date. I threw his own words back at him. You only just met him today. So what? I liked him. Who knows, it could develop into something more. I was deliberately trying to provoke him. Seeing his lips press tightly together in silence, I knew I'd achieved my goal. I'm not against you dating, he sighed. Girls just need to know how to protect themselves, especially after drinking. Don't go to men's houses then. What would happen if I did? I challenged. I saw his expression grow uncomfortable as he avoided my question. The rest of the journey passed in silence. When we got home, I quickly went to my room even though I knew he was following me, seemingly with a lot to say. I still shut the door on him. The next morning, just as I was waking up, I heard a gentle knock at my door. Hazel. It was Roland, his voice a bit hoarse. What is it? My tone was particularly unfriendly. Are you awake? No. There was silence outside the door. I want to talk to you, he said again. About what? I asked. He sighed outside the door. It's not that I'm against you dating. It's just that Sean isn't suitable for you. Why not? I felt my blood pressure rising again, angry that he was talking about someone irrelevant first thing in the morning without understanding the real issue. He either didn't know why I was angry, or he was pretending not to know. He's much older than you. The people he meets, the experiences he's had, are all beyond your imagination. Plus, he's quite the playboy. Hearing this, I laughed. See? He's always concerned about my affairs, always giving me the wrong impression, yet denying it in the same breath. Don't you know, uncle? Bad boys are the most attractive. I quite like Sean's type. He didn't respond. I couldn't see his expression, but I knew his silence probably meant he was angry. And that's exactly what I wanted to see. I slept until noon, feeling absolutely famished. I crawled out of bed in search of food. As soon as I stepped out, I saw Roland Chamberlain lounging lazily on the sofa, legs crossed, with a laptop in front of him. He seemed to be working. When he saw me, his eyes followed me, then he frowned and looked away. Hazel, don't be stubborn, he sighed. If you really like Sean, I suppose it's not impossible. He paused, staring at me. But you can't spend the night out. His words made my chest tighten with anger. Not knowing how else to express my frustration, I laughed and said, Uncle, you're hilarious. You've brought countless girls home, yet you won't allow me to spend a night out. Don't you think that's unfair? Our situations are different, he said helplessly. How so? I'm looking to get married. Dating young women like you is just for fun, it's different. That's even funnier. Uncle, are you planning to marry every girl you bring home? I'd have quite a few aunts then. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw Roland's face darken visibly. Before he could lose his temper, I grabbed my breakfast and sauntered back to my room. Although I had won the argument, I didn't feel any better. In fact, I felt worse. In the end, I made up my mind to force myself to give up. I took out my phone and sent Sean a WhatsApp message, hey. After sending the WhatsApp message, I felt utterly lost. I wasn't sure if impulsively starting a flirtatious relationship out of spite was the right thing to do. But I desperately needed someone to pull me out of this quagmire. After a while, I finally got a reply. Did Roland Chamberlain scold you? I was taken aback. It wasn't exactly scolding, but I still replied, yes, how did you know? Don't mind him, that's just how he is. Want to go out? I'll take you for a drive. I stared at my phone screen, hesitating whether to accept. Finally, I mustered up the courage to ask, aren't you afraid of Roland Chamberlain anymore? After all, last night he was so scared that he insisted on sending me home immediately. Of course I'm afraid, but you're upset, aren't you? I'll have to brave it out. His response made me chuckle. Since he was also afraid of Roland Chamberlain but still willing to defy him with me, we were on the same side now. Give me half an hour. Roland isn't home, is he? He is, I replied with a smile, curious to see how he'd handle it. What's wrong with him? Still at home keeping watch, is he trying to ward off wolves? No worries, I'll park the car behind your house. You can sneak out. All right. I couldn't help but smile again. Perhaps it was the sudden appearance of someone new in my life that finally allowed me to forget some unpleasant things, and my mood gradually improved. I don't know if there was something on my face, but after we got in the car, Sean kept staring at me. It made me feel uneasy all over. Finally, he concluded, Roland Chamberlain is quite a weirdo, but his niece is truly beautiful. He must have been complimenting me, and I felt a bit shy. Let's get you some food first, he said, his gaze falling on my rumbling stomach. Then he smoothly turned the steering wheel, taking me to a seafood restaurant by the seaside. He seemed to be a regular customer, as the owner warmly greeted him as soon as we entered. Why are you alone today? Your mate didn't come? The owner ushered him towards a private room. He's busy. We might meet up once out of 10 times I invite him, so I've given up on bringing him along, Sean joked with the owner. At that moment, the owner finally noticed me behind Sean. Oh, how careless of me. Who's this? Your girlfriend? She's like a little sister, Sean glanced at me with a smile, his expression meaningful. Hazel, this is Uncle Zach. My mates and I used to come here often when we were in school with your uncle. Is this Roland Chamberlain's niece? The owner looked at me with surprise. Indeed, hard to believe, right? His niece is already this grown up? Hello, I responded softly. The owner gave me a few more glances, then enthusiastically invited us inside. Later, as we ate quietly, I listened to him talk about various topics. He was very humorous and good at making jokes. I felt relaxed throughout the entire process, not awkward at all. From our conversation, I learned that he was only 4 years younger than Roland Chamberlain, 28 years old this year. They had attended the same secondary school, and he had grown up with Roland Chamberlain since childhood. Due to the generation difference, he indeed should call Roland Chamberlain uncle. However, according to him, he had never done so and would rather die than do it. If Roland Chamberlain scolds you, just tell me, and I'll sort him out, Sean said as he dropped me off at home. He stood at the doorstep, cigarette dangling from his lips, confidently declaring that he'd look after me from now on. How would you do that? I asked with a laugh, feeling surprisingly comfortable with him after just one day. Aren't you afraid of him? I am afraid of him, he admitted with a chuckle, exhaling smoke. But I can take a beating. His words made me shake with laughter. Just then, the door behind me opened. I saw Sean's smile freeze, and as I turned around, I saw a tall figure standing in the doorway. In the moonlight, his features looked even more striking. But seeing him made my good mood, which had lasted all day, turn sour again. The next day, I returned to university. As soon as I arrived, Meredith rushed up to me. No way, you're actually the niece of Roland Chamberlain, the richest man in Chamberlain Town? I felt annoyed. I didn't want to be his niece, but somehow more and more people seemed to know about it. So you're a proper little heiress then, keeping it all quiet, Meredith continued, playfully fanning me like a servant. We'll have to stick close to you from now on, sister. I sighed, and after a moment, I said, he just adopted me. I'm not an heiress or anything. Adopted? Meredith was clearly shocked. I had expected this reaction. People always reacted this way when I told them before. Your uncle, he doesn't have some kind of special preference, does he? Meredith asked in a hushed voice. I hadn't considered this before, but I found her suggestion ridiculous. Roland had always been careful to maintain his distance from me, even more so since I became an adult. Meredith's question made me feel that Roland was being unfairly judged. Feeling a bit angry, I couldn't help but reveal the truth. Meredith, haven't you noticed that in 2 years at uni, I've never mentioned my parents? I did notice. Why is that? I looked at her silently for a moment. We all thought your parents might be some high-powered people who needed to keep things quiet, so we didn't dare ask. My thoughts drifted back to 8 years ago. After all this time, I thought I wouldn't feel the pain anymore, but how could I not? My parents weren't big shots. My dad was a university professor, and my mom was a librarian. I paused. Roland wasn't even my uncle originally. He was my dad's last PhD student. The last student, and my dad's pride and joy. That's impressive, she said, looking disbelieving. So why do you call him uncle? I was still hesitant, but the weight of years of secrecy was suffocating me. My parents had an accident 8 years ago. Roland's been taking care of me ever since, I said with a bitter smile. Despite trying to downplay the incident, the next moment I found myself plunging into endless darkness. The air suddenly grew quiet, and neither of us spoke. Later, Meredith pulled me into a hug, comforting me silently. At that moment, I suddenly missed Roland terribly. I wanted him to hold my hand and tell me, "Don't be afraid, Hazel. I'm here." But he would never hold my hand again, nor say such things. Thinking this, tears began to fall once more. Meredith felt me crying and hugged me tighter. It was at this moment that Roland's call came through. He was using an unfamiliar number, and I wasn't prepared. Whenever I felt low, his calls would always come right on cue. I used to think it was some kind of telepathy between us, but now I wondered if it was just a coincidence, and I was the only one who took it seriously. "Hello." His cool, magnetic voice reached my ears, and my tears flowed even more freely. I tried my best not to make a sound, not wanting him to know I was crying. Not speaking? I continued to hold back my tears. "I'm going to France tomorrow for a week. Don't block this number." He paused. "If you need anything, text me. If I don't reply, call the housekeeper." I managed a faint response before hanging up. "Your uncle?" Meredith asked curiously from beside me. "Yes," I said, fidgeting with my phone, feeling agitated. Seeing my mood, Meredith didn't press further. I sat on the bed, lost in thought, then received a text from Roland. "Don't be stubborn. If there's anything you want as a gift, I'll bring it back for you." I turned off my phone without replying. For the following week, Sean didn't contact me much. Perhaps he felt I had used him that day, or maybe he was afraid of Roland. I saw Sean again at an entertainment club. It was Meredith's birthday, and her wealthy boyfriend had invited our entire dormitory to sing at a luxurious pub. The deafening music in the private room was a bit too much for me, so I excused myself to use the bathroom and catch my breath. As I came out, I encountered Sean, reeking of alcohol and smoking a cigarette. "Hello, beautiful," he slurred, his eyes lighting up when he saw me. "Sean," I greeted him. As he slowly looked up at me, I felt a bit scared. With all that alcohol on his breath, how much had he been drinking? "You know what? I don't want to keep that promise anymore," he said, his voice enticing. "What promise?" I asked quietly. He licked his lips but ultimately restrained himself and let me go. "Ask your uncle. Him? He's in room 806. He drank me under the table. When it comes to drinking, I can never outdo him." He laughed bitterly. "I promised him that if I lost the drinking contest, I'd stay far away from you." Later, Sean took me to room 806. "Talk some sense into your uncle. This isn't how you drink, it could kill him," Sean said, pushing me in front of the man leaning on the sofa. The man was resting with his eyes closed, his face pale with dark circles around his eyes. He looked exhausted. I sat there, looking at the lively crowd in the room and the bottles of alcohol scattered everywhere, feeling a bit heartbroken. "Roland," I tugged gently at his shirt, not knowing what to do. After a while, he slightly raised his eyes, as if unsure, looked at me twice more, then slowly closed his eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Hazel. What are you doing here?" He pinched the bridge of his nose, his voice betraying his drunken fatigue. "If I hadn't come, would you have drunk yourself to death here?" I bit my lip, my eyes moist, clearly worried but unable to say anything comforting. He opened his eyes, forcing a smile. "Don't cry, I won't die." Then he stood up and pulled me towards the exit. In the car park, he leaned against the car, smoking. Through the smoke, he glanced at me from the corner of his eye. I stood there, staring at him. "Give me a minute, I don't want to smoke around you. Why did you challenge Sean to a drinking contest?" I demanded. "Sean?" He lowered his head and smiled, tapping off some ash. "No reason, just felt like drinking." "You're still lying to me?" My face flushed red. Didn't you make that bet to keep him away from me? What was he thinking? Yes, he frowned and sighed. A man like him, he's been with too many girls. He could easily trick you with some small ploy. I told you, you two aren't suitable. Then who am I suitable for? You? I was getting exasperated. You're ridiculous. Roland, what do you want from me? You told me not to like you, and now when I'm trying to connect with others, you strongly oppose it. Don't you think you're being contradictory? He stared at me, unusually silent. After a long silence, he spoke again, don't look in my circle. There aren't many good people there, including me. Of course you're not a good person, I said, tears falling as I glared at him with red eyes. You just want me to stay away from you and your circle, right? I get it. You don't need to harm your body with these childish bets. For some reason, I couldn't stop crying when I saw him. Earlier, when I saw him lying there, pale-faced, I was terrified. Don't cry, he reached out to wipe my tears, but I turned away. His hands stopped midair, his eyes filled with emotions I couldn't understand. Do you want to go home? He asked. No, I wiped my own tears, my voice a bit choked. I'm with my classmates. He paused for a few seconds, then sighed, it's late. I'm 20 years old now, you can't control me forever, I retorted, feeling upset and not wanting to talk to him anymore. He lowered his head, thinking for a while, then said in a hoarse voice, I'll look after you until you're married. What if I never get married? Will you look after me forever? My words stumped him, and he was speechless for a moment, his eyes fixed on me. The next second, I realized why he was doing this. Is it because of my parents' request? He visibly stiffened, apparently not expecting me to say that. After a while, he said, they did me a favor. I promised them I'd take care of you for life. He sounded particularly sad when he said this. His mood affected me, and I lowered my head, not saying anything. When they entrusted me to look after you, they probably didn't expect their daughter would fall for me, I laughed bitterly. Hazel, please, if you don't like me, stay far away from me. Don't be kind to me anymore. Your kindness is like a knife in my heart, do you understand? I glared at him fiercely. He moved his lips but said nothing in the end. Later, I left without looking back. As I turned away, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. After that encounter, Roland Chamberlain and I never contacted each other again. I didn't return to that house either. Later, I sent a message to Sean Faulkner, but he never replied. I became completely alone. The monthly allowance transferred to my bank account became the only connection between Roland and me. As the numbers grew larger, I no longer wanted to use his money. On the weekend, I worked as a hostess at an awards ceremony. Then I encountered Roland again. He walked onto the stage to present an award, but his gaze was fixed on me the entire time. When he saw me, he was surprised. Although his expression remained calm, he blocked my path the moment I tried to leave. Run out of money? He asked. No, I refused to engage with him. I had seen news of him and Zoe Carlyle together in various newspapers. They looked so perfect together, with comments praising them as a match made in heaven. Don't be stubborn, he softened his voice, staring at me. Didn't you want to cut ties with me? What's the point of using your money? From now on, I'll support myself, I bit my lip, refusing to look him in the eye. He stared at me for a while, and because I wouldn't look at him, he finally bent down to meet my gaze. Seeing my awkward expression, he suddenly smiled, such a child. If you want to earn money, that's fine. But one thing, don't let anyone bully you, he said, then stepped aside to let me pass. The event coordinator asked me to serve drinks at his table. I wanted to refuse, but everyone else was busy, so I had no choice but to carry the drinks over. I politely inquired and handed glasses to the men at the table. When it was his turn, I didn't ask, just placed the drink in front of him and turned to leave. Young lady, that's quite impolite. Do you know who this gentleman is? The man next to him suddenly called out to me, his tone half joking. I glanced at Roland but said nothing. He showed no emotion, his long fingers lifting the glass for a small sip. I don't know, I said, annoyed that he didn't come to my defense. Hearing my words, he lowered his head and chuckled softly. The people around him seemed frightened by his laugh and suddenly didn't know how to reprimand me. Young lady, this is our Mr. Chamberlain. Don't serve drinks anymore, just stay here and pour some tea. The man from earlier smiled at Roland, apparently misunderstanding something, his attitude towards me suddenly improving. I'm sorry, but I need to serve drinks at another table, I said, forcing an awkward smile as I tried to leave. But as soon as I took a step, that man grabbed my hand. You're just a university student, what do you know about the real world? The coordinator saw the situation and rushed over. I was about to apologize when Roland, who had been sitting, drained his glass in one go, stood up, walked to my side, and gripped the man's hand. The man cried out in pain and had to let go of my hand. Mr. Chamberlain, what are you? This is my girl. I haven't brought her out much, so I apologize, Mr. Sinclair. His voice was terrifyingly low. I had never seen him like this before. What? She's yours. Mr. Chamberlain. I'm sorry. Mr. Sinclair's words were broken by pain. The people around were quite scared, all standing up to persuade him, but Roland ignored them completely. Seeing Mr. Sinclair's face turning blue with pain, I got scared and tugged at Roland's sleeve. He turned to look at me, his expression finally softening a bit. Does it hurt? He asked me gently. A little, but it's fine, I said, flexing my wrist. He stared at me for a few seconds before turning back and finally releasing Mr. Sinclair. He wiped his hand with a napkin, then gently took my wrist and walked towards the exit. When we reached the car park, I shook off his hand. What if something had happened to him because of what you did? I was worried about him, afraid he might get into serious trouble because of me. He should be grateful nothing happened to you, he said, taking my wrist again and examining it carefully, finally letting out a sigh of relief. This is what work is like. It's not the first or second time I've encountered people like that. You can protect me now, but can you do it forever? I told you, don't let anyone bully you, he said, anger in his voice. Bully? I laughed bitterly. Aren't you the one who bullies me the most? He was silent for a moment, then said, don't do this kind of part-time job anymore. Let go, Roland. I'll have to rely on myself to live eventually. Living off you and then being kicked away is too painful. He looked at me and said softly, Hazel, even if I marry someone else, we're still family. I don't want to be your family, don't you understand? I suddenly shouted at him. He was stunned, frozen in place, not knowing what to do with me. Invite me to your wedding, I'll definitely come, I said, then walked away. The days that followed were relatively easy. Gradually, I adapted to life without him and to working part-time jobs to earn money. When I didn't have classes, I would occasionally go to the cinema or shopping with my roommates. One by one, my roommates all got boyfriends, leaving me as the only single one. I didn't really want to date anyone. It seemed that because of Roland Chamberlain, I had lost the ability to love someone. On Christmas Day, everyone went on dates, while I sat alone in the dormitory, absent-mindedly scrolling through Facebook. I saw that Sean Faulkner had posted about building a snowman, and out of habit, I liked his post. Then his call came through. Hello, Sean, I answered. Where are you? His end sounded incredibly lively. In the dorm. I felt somewhat awkward. We hadn't been in touch for over half a year, and his sudden call made me uncomfortable. Why are you in the dorm on such a big holiday? Aren't you bored? He asked. It's all right, I replied. What could I say? If I wasn't going to Roland's house, where else could I go? Want to come out and play? I'll come pick you up. After not seeing each other for over half a year, his tone sounded so natural, as if we had just been in contact yesterday. I remained silent, hesitating. I was actually uncertain because Roland didn't like me being with Sean, saying he wasn't a good person. Say something. If you don't come out to play, all the snow on the hill will melt. I'll give you 3 seconds to think about it. If you don't speak, I'll take it as a yes. 1, 2, 3, time's up. Wait for me at the dorm. I'm hanging up now. He spoke so quickly that before I could react, the call had ended. I was stunned, not knowing what to do. He arrived too quickly for me to think of how to refuse. He was already downstairs. Sean sat on the flower bed, smoking. In the moonlight, I noticed he had dyed his hair gray. He looked up at me, smiling. "It's been half a year. Did you miss your big brother?" "No," I awkwardly uttered a single word. In response, he pretended to be angry, stood up, put his arm around my neck, and gently pinched me. "Punishment," he said. Then, he naturally led me away. He took me to the hill, which was quite far from the city center. It took quite a while to drive there. Along the way, he remained talkative, asking about my situation at university and how I got along with my roommates. He also shared interesting things that had happened to him over the past 6 months, but notably didn't mention Roland. I thought it might be because of that bet. When we arrived, I realized there was a group of people on the hill, men and women playing cards, chatting, playing games, and building snowmen. No one really paid attention to my arrival, seemingly not caring much about it, and continued to have fun. Only a few people, noticing me closely following Sean, occasionally asked, "New girlfriend?" He would smile and answer, "Just a little sister." Hearing him say this, I let my guard down and slowly started to join in with the group. Everyone played until nearly dawn before returning to their rooms. It was then that I realized I didn't have a room. Just as I was about to go to the front desk to book one, Sean naturally squeezed my hand and looked at me for a few seconds. I felt a bit flustered under his gaze. He suddenly smiled, his handsome face revealing 2 shallow dimples. Before I could react, he lowered his head and kissed my lips. A masculine scent enveloped me, and my mind went blank instantly. I reflexively tried to dodge, but he held my head in place with his hand, directly parting my teeth. A strange feeling came over me, and I suddenly couldn't move, allowing him to kiss me. After kissing for a while, he squeezed my waist a few times from behind and said in a husky voice, "Come to my room?" My mind was in chaos, and my heart was racing. I wanted to refuse, but I couldn't say it out loud. Seeing that I didn't speak, he reached out and pinched my earlobe, asking with a smile, "Shy?" Without waiting for my answer, he directly put his arm around me and took me to his room. As soon as we entered, he hugged me and took me to the bedroom, then began to kiss me deeply and lightly on my cheeks, ears, neck, and collarbone. I was in his embrace, lost in the moment. It wasn't until his hand reached for the zipper that I suddenly came to my senses. "Don't be afraid, I'll be gentle," he said. I held my breath and thought for a long time, but ultimately couldn't take that step. I had a great time with him tonight, and the current ambiguity was very intoxicating, but I still couldn't do it. Seeing that I still wouldn't give in, he kissed my face and then went to the bathroom. I lay there waiting for my emotions to calm down, thinking about what had happened tonight. I had always said I wanted to completely let go of my feelings for Roland, but it was all self-deception. I had never truly let go. Sean's actions tonight finally cut off my lingering thoughts of Roland. There was no going back for us now. When I woke up in the morning and came out of his room, no one seemed surprised. They just greeted me and invited me to breakfast. Sean and his friends were quite wild in their partying. I was a bit timid and often couldn't keep up with his pace. But he was gentle enough, always considering me. When his friends called him to join many activities, he would hold my hand and shake his head. "You go ahead, I'll just watch you guys from here," I'd say. I felt a bit embarrassed, thinking I was holding him back. "Who cares about them?" "I just like being with you," he said, ruffling my hair. "Is this what being in love feels like?" It wasn't intense or dizzying, but just being with him made a subtle sweetness spread from the bottom of my heart. He and his friends all loved excitement, yet he was willing to stay quietly here with me. So he must truly love me, right? In the evening, I still stayed with him. After washing up, he was playing on his phone in bed. When I came over, he hugged and kissed me, but didn't go any further. We spent 2 days cuddling like this. Time passed quickly. He dropped me off at my dormitory, cigarette dangling from his lips, and asked when my next holiday would be. I told him it would only be after my exams were over, as exam week was particularly busy. He squeezed my waist and said, "Be good, and remember to think of your big brother every day." Then he turned and waved, I'm off. Goodbye. I stood there, lost in thought as I watched him walk away. Do I have a boyfriend now? I touched the spot he had squeezed, everything feeling a bit unreal. However, my happiness lasted barely 2 seconds before Roland Chamberlain appeared in front of me. Hearing the sound of a horn, I snapped back to reality and noticed a black Bentley parked inconspicuously at the corner. My heart sank, suddenly feeling guilty like I'd been caught sneaking around. Had Roland been sitting in the car watching Sean and me being affectionate for all that time? I felt annoyed, but then I thought I hadn't done anything wrong. My relationship with Sean wasn't any of his business. With this in mind, I still walked over to his car window. Did you enjoy Christmas? He rolled down the car window and glanced at me, then looked away, his expression neutral. I thought he might ask where Sean and I had been, but he didn't. Yes, I did, I replied. I waited for him to continue, but he just lowered his head and remained silent for a while before finally saying, I'm glad you did. He then reached into the car and pulled out a bag, handing it to me through the window. What's this? I looked at the bag without reaching for it. To be honest, it was impossible not to feel a bit curious, given that we hadn't seen each other in so long. A gift I bought for you when I was in France last time, he said, looking at me with exhaustion evident on his face from long hours of work. Thank you. I hesitated for a moment before accepting the bag. Roland, I mustered up the courage to call his name. He looked up, a flicker of light in his eyes. I'm in a relationship, I announced loudly, as if declaring, I don't like you anymore, we can finally make peace. He was silent for a long time before uttering a single word, good. What about you? When are you getting married? During the Christmas holidays? I tried to sound casual, attempting to lighten the heavy atmosphere. He forced a smile, we'll see. Are you going home? He suddenly asked. Seeing that I didn't respond, he added, tomorrow is the anniversary of the professor's death. His words hit me like a bolt of lightning, stirring up a whirlwind of emotions in my heart. I had been so caught up in the festivities these past couple of days that, although I remembered this, I hadn't had time to truly feel sad about it. I finally understood the source of his melancholy today. All right, I said, walking around to the other side and getting into the car. For years now, on the anniversary of my parents' deaths, Roland and I would go to pay our respects together. No matter where he was or how busy he might be, he would always return in advance to attend the memorial service. And during these days, he would remain in low spirits for a long time afterwards. I knew all this, but I never understood just how close he and my father had been, for him to continue doing this for 8 years, all while taking care of me without fail. Whenever I asked about it, he would simply say that my father was his mentor, a lifelong benefactor. Have you been drinking again? As soon as I got in the car, I smelled the strong scent of alcohol. Just a bit, he said with a forced smile, rolling down the window all the way. You should really drink less. I couldn't help but worry about him. Over the years, his smoking habit had worsened, and his alcohol consumption had gradually increased. His health was bound to suffer sooner or later. Regardless of everything else, I didn't want him to ruin his health. All right, he glanced at me from the corner of his eye before looking away, his voice faint. I was a bit surprised, not understanding why he was being so agreeable today. It felt almost like a farewell. Later, he seemed to fall asleep in the car. The butler helped him out of the car and into the house. The housekeeper went up to tidy up for him and came down to tell me that he seemed quite drunk and had been sick several times during the night. Just how much had he drunk? The next day, as we went to pay our respects, I spoke to my parents at length, just as I had done in previous years. Throughout this time, Roland Chamberlain stood nearby, leaning against a tree and quietly smoking, waiting for me to finish sharing all my thoughts. His face remained impassive, occasionally adding a comment or two when I mentioned certain events. It suddenly dawned on me that I wasn't the only one who remembered these moments so vividly. In fact, he seemed to recall them even more clearly than I did. Are you finished? He asked, extinguishing his cigarette. Just about, I replied, glancing at him as I prepared to stand up. But as I tried to rise, my legs were completely numb. He had already turned to leave, but as if he had eyes in the back of his head, he turned back and extended his arm to help me up. I grasped his arm and slowly got to my feet. My parents weren't buried in a public cemetery, but rather on a hillside. This was because they had always dreamed of returning to a rural life, and in death, they finally got their wish. The slope was quite steep. I had never been much for hiking, and I remembered when my parents first passed away. I had stumbled down this very hill, crying and getting covered in mud. Roland had been tall and strong back then, a stoic teenager. He had walked down to the bottom of the hill alone, only to realize I wasn't with him. He ran back up to find me, and eventually just hoisted me onto his shoulder, yelling at me for being so clumsy that I couldn't even walk down a hill without falling. His temper wasn't the best in those days. When I first moved in with him, he would often lose his temper. At first, I thought he was angry with me, but later the housekeeper, Mr. Carlyle, told me it had nothing to do with me. He was struggling to cope with the loss of his mentor. Gradually, he learned to control his temper and started to speak to me properly, learning to care for me like a parent would. Because of our 12-year age gap, and to avoid gossip, Mr. Carlyle suggested I call him uncle. At first, I couldn't accept it. He was just a young man, calling him brother made sense, but uncle seemed too strange. He joked, "Whether you call me uncle or brother, I'm still the one being bullied by you." Thinking back on that time, we were two people on the edge of a cliff, comforting each other, smoothing out each other's rough edges, until we became as precious as family to one another. When did I start to dislike calling him uncle? Perhaps it was after watching too many romantic dramas where the female lead calling the male lead uncle never ended well. As a teenager, I began to develop my own little fantasies. I started secretly writing about him in my diary, finding the boys in my class childish and laughable compared to Roland. I began to ponder my own naive feelings, the stirrings I couldn't express, wondering how I could make them a reality. As time passed, I found myself falling deeper. Finally, after a shower one evening, I tried to test his reaction by wearing a sheer camisole. He stared at me for a long time before abruptly averting his gaze. We didn't speak for the rest of the night. Embarrassed and ashamed, I couldn't sleep, wondering how I would explain myself in the morning. But when I woke up, he was already gone. When he returned a few days later, he brought a woman with him and introduced me as his niece. In that moment, my heart ached so much I could barely breathe. Later, trapped in a swamp of pain and resentment, I explicitly told him I liked him. He explicitly rejected me. This pattern of me testing him and him rejecting me played out again and again. I grew tired, so very tired. I pulled out my phone and sent a message to Sean. "Brother." He didn't reply, so I turned off my screen again. Roland hadn't said much, just frowning as he replied to messages. I kept glancing at my phone, checking for a response. "What do you fancy for lunch?" he suddenly asked. "Anything's fine." I had no appetite and wasn't interested. He called to order food. Just then, Sean's WhatsApp message came through. "What's up?" "I want to see you," I replied directly. In previous years on the anniversary, I had always spent my lone moments with Roland. Now, the first person I thought of was Sean, the first man who had given me love. "Sure, I'll come find you at uni," he responded. I sent back a simple okay. "There's a seafood place I haven't taken you to yet. I've booked a table, let's go try it," Roland suddenly said, looking at me. I remembered the place Sean had taken me before and blurted out, "You mean Zach's place?" "I've been there." He turned his head, looking at me quizzically, somewhat surprised. "Sean took me there," I explained. He fell silent for a while before asking, "Was it good?" "Do you want to go again?" "No thanks," I shook my head. Then, remembering something, I added, "I need to get back to uni. Could you drop me off on the street in front of campus?" He paused for a moment before saying, "All right." As I was getting out, he reminded me to take the gifts from the car. Worried Sean might ask about them later and not wanting to explain, I told him to take them back home. He agreed. After saying goodbye to Roland, I waited for Sean at the bottom of the dormitory building. He still had his gray hair, a cigarette dangling from his lips, looking as rebellious as ever. He put his arm around me and we got into his car. He said he wanted to take me to a holiday resort, but I told him I had exams and needed to revise, that I didn't have time. But he pleaded, "Hazel, don't you miss your brother at all?" I softened and ended up going back to my room to grab my revision books before heading to the resort with him. It was another gathering with his friends. We partied all afternoon and evening, going wild. By nighttime, I was exhausted in bed, too tired to even think about studying. I just wanted to close my eyes and sleep. But as soon as I did, Sean's kisses came, soft and insistent. I didn't resist, letting him kiss me until my whole body felt weak. "Hazel, how long are you going to make your brother wait?" he asked me. "Not today," I refused, despite his coaxing. "Not today again?" He kept kissing me, ignoring my protests. "Come on, Hazel, I'm only human." "No," I pushed him away, refusing adamantly. But he acted as if he hadn't heard me, his actions becoming forceful. "I said no!" I suddenly shouted. This outburst stopped him in his tracks. He finally ceased his advances, staring at me in shock. He was angry. I felt I should explain to him that today was the anniversary of my parents' death, and even if it wasn't, I couldn't accept moving so fast with him. He looked at me for a long time before coldly asking, "Are you still in love with Roland?" I was stunned into silence by his question. "No, I'm not," I weakly denied. I admit I did have feelings for Roland, but since deciding to be with Sean, I had completely put those feelings aside. "You're still lying to me?" He sat up, staring at me. "Don't tell me that Roland's constant protection of you, keeping me away from you, putting me down at every turn, don't tell me he's doing all that just because he sees you as a niece? If you love him so much, why did you lead me on?" He suddenly became very angry. "Hazel, I've never been played by a woman in my life." With that, he got out of bed, put on his clothes, and left without looking back, leaving me trembling in fear on the bed. I didn't understand why having liked someone in the past had become my dark history, or why not wanting to move too fast was my fault. The next morning, Sean was gone. His friend drove me back to uni. I thought for a long time, feeling unsettled all week. I wanted to send him a WhatsApp message to explain, but then I saw his Facebook post. It was a photo posted by his friend. In the picture, Sean was intimately embracing a girl in a pub. At that moment, tears suddenly streamed down my face. I knew then that my first love had ended. 2 weeks later, I stared at the news on my mobile, stunned by the announcement of Sean Faulkner and Zoe Carlyle's engagement. I couldn't believe my eyes. Sean was the same man who, just a fortnight ago, had been calling me little sister and coddling me. And Zoe was the woman Roland Chamberlain had intended to marry. How had these two suddenly come together? I sat in my dormitory for a long while before finally sending Sean a WhatsApp message. "Where are you? I'd like to see you." His response came quickly. "Strand Hotel Limited. Come over." Sitting in the taxi, I hesitated, feeling I might be acting rashly. But I couldn't bear to turn back now. Gathering my courage, I got out of the cab and headed straight for the hotel lobby. He told me he was in the ballroom. I was about to push open the door when I bumped into someone. "Hazel?" Zoe Carlyle, dressed in an expensive evening gown, looked me up and down. "Roland isn't here." She showed no shame for betraying Roland. "I'm looking for Sean," I said, staring at her intently. "What for?" "Trying to seek justice for your uncle?" She laughed, taking a sip of red wine. "Hazel, I don't owe your uncle anything." His attitude towards me was unbearable for any woman. "That's between you and Roland." "My business with Sean is our own," I said, not bothering to explain further. "What do you mean?" She looked at me, puzzled. After a few seconds, she suddenly laughed. "You're so young. It's bad enough you seduced your uncle, and now you're trying to seduce Sean? Dream on." Her words sent chills down my spine. "I didn't entice Sean," I said, biting my lip and holding back tears. "He pursued me." Hearing this, she laughed uncontrollably. "He pursued you? Are you sure you're not just deluding yourself? He's been begging to form an alliance with my family. All I have to do is crook my finger, and he'll get rid of any girl around him. Little girl, people like us don't have love, only alliances of interest. I advise you not to get carried away with romantic notions." I stood there, listening to her words, my heart sinking into despair. When did you two get together? I asked, desperately seeking an answer that would make me give up completely. She paused for a second. 6 months ago. Even when I was still with your uncle, he approached me many times. I was like you then, thinking I could find love. But Roland really disappointed me, so I agreed to Sean's proposal. What, did he try to seduce you too? Hearing her say this, I felt utterly hopeless. I don't remember how I left. I wandered aimlessly through the crowded streets, watching the passers-by. I crouched down in pain, hugging myself and crying softly. I don't know how long I cried, but suddenly it started raining. Then, it seemed the rain stopped. I was dazed for a while, then looked up at the sky. Instead of seeing the sky, I saw an umbrella. Following the umbrella, I saw Roland Chamberlain. He was wearing a black wool coat, his eyes dark and intimidating. His pale face bore an expression I couldn't read. Rainwater ran down his shoulders, dripping onto his leather shoes and splashing tiny droplets. He stared at me for a long moment before finally sighing. "Let's go home," he said. I turned away, biting my lip as tears fell once again. The kinder he was, the more I wanted to cry. I couldn't stop the tears. He reached out, cupping my face and wiping my tears with his thumb. There, Hazel. Don't cry." At that, I could no longer hold back. I threw myself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Roland, he lied to me. He lied to me," I cried, voicing my grievances. He held the umbrella with one hand and embraced me with the other, gently patting my back. His voice was hoarse as he said, "It's all over now." He held me there in the rain, comforting me until I calmed down. Then he led me to the car, fastened my seatbelt, and drove us home. The exams were finally over. I didn't return to school after that. Throughout the entire winter break, I secluded myself at home, refusing to go out. Roland Chamberlain seemed less busy than before. He moved his work to our home, staying by my side every day. He was probably worried I might do something rash. But I wasn't that fragile. Ever since my parents passed away, I've understood how precious life is. How could I waste it so carelessly? I lived not just for myself, but for my parents too. However, I hadn't been able to live as well as I'd promised them. I felt like a failure. Roland hadn't brought any women home lately either. It felt like we'd returned to the past, to those times when we could talk about anything without hesitation. I was afraid I might be deluding myself again, worried that I'd disrupt the harmonious relationship we now had, exhausting us both. So I tried my best to avoid contact with him, to avoid eye contact. But whenever he came near me, that feeling of a racing heart and flushed cheeks returned. One evening, as I was alone at home, he messaged me on WhatsApp, saying he couldn't make it back that night but we'd spend time together the day after tomorrow. I said okay. I checked the calendar and was stunned. The day after tomorrow was actually Valentine's Day. Was it a coincidence, or did he have something else in mind? That night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. In the early hours, still wide awake, I got up in my nightgown and went to his study to find a book to read. After a while, unable to focus on reading, I started looking through his collection of newspapers. He'd always had a habit of collecting them, and an entire small room was filled with stacks of papers. As I carefully flipped through them, my eyes fell on a particular date. It was the anniversary of my parents' death, and this newspaper was from 8 years ago. I hesitated for a long time before pulling out that paper. I was just curious about what else had happened on the day my parents died. As I opened the newspaper, I was immediately shocked. Renowned university professor dies tragically while saving a young man from drowning. I was stunned. My parents had died due to drowning. But the initial report hadn't mentioned any specifics about the young man who had fallen into the water, only stating that he was missing. At the time, I was so overwhelmed with grief over my parents' death that I cried day and night, never thinking to look for that person. But the report I was now reading was different from what I remembered. This one stated that the young man had jumped into the river due to relationship troubles. And not just anyone, but the professor's own student. My hands, feet, and teeth began to shake. At the bottom of the article, there was a handwritten note in pen, "Professor, I'm sorry. I will take care of your daughter for the rest of my life. My vision began to blur, my head buzzing. I alternated between crying and laughing, like a madwoman. It turned out that the young man who had fallen into the water was Roland Chamberlain. The past flashed before my eyes like fleeting clouds, scene by scene. Suddenly, everything seemed to make sense. I left. I didn't know how to face him. The thought that he was responsible for my parents' death, causing the tragedy of my life these past years, made it hard for me to breathe. I hated him, but I hated myself more because I couldn't bring myself to truly hate him. He called me later, apologizing over and over, but I didn't say a word. He must have known his secret was out, which is why he called to confess. But what good was that now? We could never be together again. Roland Chamberlain, this is where our story ends. I sent him one last WhatsApp message, deleting him from my life for good. All right, Hazel. Take care of yourself. That was our final conversation. When school started again, after a holiday of torturous suffering, I suddenly changed dramatically. I began flirting with different boys. Every day, my WhatsApp was so busy I could barely keep up with replies. It seemed only this way could I force myself to forget the unpleasant memories. My roommate kindly warned me not to play with fire, but I paid no attention. I could be coy with boys during the day, but at night, I lay sleepless. I felt I was ill. My roommate somehow got hold of Roland Chamberlain's number and secretly told him about my recent behavior. So Roland started coming to the school to find me, tirelessly. He would always park his car below the dormitory, watching me through that window. And I would always calmly walk past, never once approaching him. I once joked with my roommate, if he has the ability, let him wait a lifetime. We'll see who persists to the end. I'll win in the end. He can't outlast me. After all, he's older than me. I didn't know what was wrong with me. If this continued, I would surely fall into depression. I feared I might go mad before he gave up. An ex-boyfriend, or more accurately, a boy I had just dumped named Barnaby Hayward, invited me out. By evening, he had only booked one room. I knew what he wanted. The reason I dumped him was because he wanted to sleep with me. I could kiss, I could hug, but sleeping together was impossible. So I dumped him. In front of his friends, I went and booked my own room. He seemed unable to save face and glared at me fiercely. You won't sleep with me, but you still come out on a date. What's your game? Does going on a date with you mean I have to sleep with you? What do you take me for? I'm just passing time. What, are you going to force me? Hazel Ashworth, you're really not giving me any face. Are you sure you won't be begging me? Beg you? I laughed. In your dreams. I soon understood why he had said, "Are you sure you won't be begging me?" Because I had drunk the water he handed me. In the hotel bathroom, I felt weak all over, my body burning up. I looked it up quickly and realized he had set me up. Now he was standing outside the bathroom door, saying softly, "Hazel, come out, be good." Barnaby, how can you be so despicable? I locked the bathroom door, not letting him in. Despicable? Hazel, you never let me touch you. You have a psychological problem. I'm helping you overcome your mental barrier. Rubbish! I didn't want to waste words with him. I turned on the tap, constantly dousing myself with cold water, but even though I was shivering from the cold, the discomfort didn't diminish at all. He started kicking the door outside. For the first time, I felt fear. I hesitated for a good while with my phone in hand before finally calling Roland Chamberlain. Roland Chamberlain. I called his name in a weak voice. Hazel. He sounded nervous, probably hearing something off in my voice, and asked urgently, "Where are you?" I don't know. My head was starting to spin, and I could barely think. Send me your live location and don't turn off your phone. I heard the sound of a car starting on his end as he reassured me, telling me he'd be there soon. I don't know when he arrived. I only felt him lift me up. He put me in the back seat, securing me with the seatbelt. I'm taking you to the hospital. Hold on. But the road seemed endless. Later, the car stopped. It seemed a fallen tree was blocking the road down the hill. He went to the boot, taking out tools to try and clear the tree. Perhaps finding it too difficult and time-consuming, he came back, looking at me anxiously, and started making phone calls, cursing as he did. No matter how difficult, even if you have to drag the workers out of bed, get that road cleared for me. He was becoming frantic. Roland Chamberlain, I called out to him. I'm here. He looked at me, full of worry. I feel so awful. If I'm going to die, can you bury me with my parents? I cried, trying to grasp onto something. Hazel, don't talk nonsense. He reached out and held my hand. Roland Chamberlain, I was wrong, I was so wrong. I sobbed uncontrollably. But I really like you so much. After saying this, I felt like I was about to faint from the discomfort. Suddenly, I was pulled into an embrace, his kisses falling all over me. I clung to him like a lifeline, desperately seeking him out. The next day, the fierce midday sun stung my eyes, making it hard to open them. I frowned slightly, and immediately a hand reached over to shield me from the sunlight. I managed to open my eyes and looked up to meet Roland Chamberlain's tender gaze. I was startled for a moment. In that second, scenes from last night flashed through my mind like a film. Remembering certain moments, I blushed. He, however, looked at me calmly. After a few seconds of eye contact, he couldn't help but smile gently and said, "Now you know what it means to be tired?" Hearing him say this, my face grew even redder. This was my second visit to the seafood restaurant, but this time I was accompanied by Roland Chamberlain instead. Zach, the owner, was as welcoming as ever. However, when he saw me standing beside Roland, there was a moment of surprise followed by silence. "Would you like some crab and prawns?" Zach quickly regained his normal expression. I suppose he remembered that I had eaten a lot of these two dishes when I came with Sean last time. "Yes, please," I answered softly. I wasn't sure what Roland would think. After that incident, our relationship had become somewhat strange. Even though we had been intimate, he never explicitly told me he liked me or loved me. Since he didn't say anything, I didn't ask either. At an extra place setting, Roland said to Zach. Certainly, Zach replied and went to prepare it. Roland led me to a private room. He stood by the window smoking until the food arrived, then he put out his cigarette and sat down. "Is someone else joining us?" I asked, looking at the extra place setting. He paused for a moment, an old acquaintance. "Shall we wait for them?" I asked, feeling a bit uneasy as I didn't know who he meant. "No need, let's start," he said, beginning to peel prawns for me with gloved hands. Soon my plate was piled high with peeled prawns and crab meat, and he started filling another plate. I watched him in surprise, saying nothing. After a few seconds, he glanced at me and slowly began to speak. "There was once a girl, about your age now. Her name was Yvonne Griffith. She, Sean, and I grew up together." He paused, as if sighing. "Later, Yvonne and I got together. We used to be friends who could talk about anything, but after becoming a couple, we often argued. I was quite a jerk back then. I would deliberately ignore her calls when she was upset, going out with friends instead. I thought she would always come back and apologize anyway. As I listened to him speak this way, I began to understand his feelings for that girl. I didn't feel bad about it, just sorry for her. Then, after one argument, she never came back to apologize. What happened? My heart clenched. Sean told me that Yvonne had died, walking far out into the sea. His gaze drifted to the window. I followed his gaze, too shocked to speak. I began to understand why Roland had been suicidal. He must have felt terribly guilty and confused at that time. Later, Sean beat me up. He said she had come to find me that night, late. She ran into some thugs on her way out. She didn't come to me again, but came back here, locked herself in her room for days, and finally made that choice. As he said this, I saw his eyes grow moist. It was too much information, and I was stunned. The air suddenly became quiet, and neither of us spoke. Did Sean like that girl too? I suddenly realized. I suppose so. That's why I told you, his approach to you wasn't purely innocent. He hates me. Since then, he's tried to compete with me for everything. I suddenly remembered how enthusiastic Sean had been when he first met me, then mysteriously disappeared and reappeared. He probably never really liked me at all. I felt a bit sad about it. He continued, the night I came back, I had a big fight with Sean. He blamed me, resented me. I pretended not to care, but I felt terrible. I went back to school alone, drank I don't know how much, and stumbled to the river bank. Maybe I hallucinated, but I saw her in the river calling for help. Without thinking, I jumped in. Hazel, you can blame me. That's when I encountered your parents. They were calling from the shore. Your father jumped in to try and pull me back, but I kept swimming towards the center, ignoring him. When it was clear he couldn't hold on, your mother, who was out for a walk with them, jumped in too. By the time I came to my senses, your parents had been swept away by the current. At that moment, I stopped breathing. As the past was brought up, everyone's pain was laid bare, and my heart ached so much I couldn't breathe. So, you raised me because you felt indebted to my parents? It took enormous effort to say these words. Yes, Roland looked at me honestly. So, you're also afraid to accept me, fearing that one day when I learn the truth, I'll hate you? He suddenly gave a bitter laugh. You would find out the truth sooner or later, but it's not your hatred I fear. He paused for a moment, then sighed, I'm afraid of hurting you. I once let down a girl. Looking back, Yvonne and I should have just remained friends. The cost of turning a friendship into love was too high. I'm not even sure if I really liked her, or if it was just youthful impulse that made us get together. Roland, I called his name, do you like me? We were so close, and I could see the complex, sorrowful emotions in his eyes. My heart suddenly calmed. Roland, it's been 8 years. Have you let go? I asked softly. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out and took my hand in his. He didn't speak or look at me, just stared at the bowl of peeled prawns. After a long while, he finally spoke. She used to always peel prawns for me. Today is the first time I've peeled them for her, and it will be the last. Hazel. He suddenly stared at me. If I hadn't let go, I wouldn't have brought you here today. Why did we come here? I asked again. He looked up at Zach, who happened to pass by the window. Yvonne was Zach's daughter. I was even more shocked. Does he know about you and his daughter? He knows. He lowered his head. He used to be my family's gardener. After the incident, he's been staying by this seaside, running this seafood restaurant. He watched Sean and me grow up, like family. So after what happened, not only did he not come after me, he sent a message through someone, telling me to live well. I thought, if my parents were given another chance to choose, they would still choose to save Roland. If Roland were given another chance to choose, he would still jump into the river without hesitation after seeing that girl. Are you full? Roland's words brought me back from my thoughts. I nodded. He stood up, squeezed my hand, then led me towards Zach. Did you enjoy your meal? Zach, who had been lost in thought, put on a smile when he saw us. It was delicious, thank you, Zach. I forced a smile and replied. Zach's gaze, however, fell on our joined hands, and a flicker of unease crossed his expression. Zach, I forgot to introduce you. Roland's tone had become very calm. This is my girlfriend, Hazel. I was a bit surprised. This was the first time he had acknowledged our relationship, or rather, the first time he had clearly defined our relationship. And it was in front of Zach. I felt a bit worried for him. Zach was shocked, then seemed to feel some relief. He moved his lips and said, she's a pretty girl. Bring her here more often, I'll cook some good food for you both. All right, Roland said, then slowly led me towards the seaside. Later, I asked him why he had to tell Zach, and if it would make Zach uncomfortable. He said, it's been 8 years. It's time for all of us to let go. Roland, do you accept me because you've let go, or because you feel indebted? I still felt insecure, feeling that everything was too sudden. He suddenly smiled, then whispered in my ear, if anyone's indebted, it's you to me. Who gave you permission to fall asleep halfway through? He pinched my cheek gently, then added, "That day in the car, need me to help you remember?" He smiled and patted my head, "Be good in the future, and work on your stamina. Your endurance isn't good enough." Suddenly remembering something, I grumbled indignantly, "Your stamina is good because you've had practice." Just thinking about all those women he'd been with, as numerous as fish in the river, made me feel cheated. Hearing me say this, he turned the steering wheel and pulled over to the side of the road. Then he leaned over, looked down at me, and said, "How could I have practiced? It was my first time too." "You're lying." "First time, really?" Did he think I knew nothing? "Those women you used to bring back." I felt uncomfortable under his gaze and didn't want to continue. He suddenly sat back, sighed, and said, "They were fake." He started the car again. I was surprised, and half doubting. He reached out to hold my hand. "Don't overthink it. Before, it was to push you away. Now I've realized that even after pushing you away, I'm still not happy. I might as well be true to my heart." One night, as I cuddled in his arms while he was working and I was watching him, I suddenly asked, "Why do you like me? Will you get tired of me in the future because I can't leave you?" He paused for a moment, then closed his laptop and hugged me. "You think you're the one who can't leave me?" He smiled and ruffled my hair. "Without you, I could never have moved past that time. I'm the one who can't leave you." At that moment, bathed in moonlight, I was immersed in his tenderness, hopelessly in love. Finally, he lowered his head and kissed me. In that instant, I saw an entire galaxy of stars in his eyes.